Dear students, I am Dr. Natarajan Suresh, Professor of Pathology, Sree Balaji Medical College and Hospital, with over a decade of experience of teaching. I have been a UG and a PG examiner, and I got around 20 publications in index journals. So, topic we're going to discuss today is hemodynamic disorders. So, we can understand today's topic as a normal blood flow and fluid balance, to learn the causes and effect of edema, congestion, and hemorrhage, to know how thrombosis and embolism develop, and to study the types, causes, and stages of shock. So, introduction: edema consists of 5 things. Main 5 topics are edema, congestion, thrombosis, embolism, and shock. So, these 5 things, dear students, you will be able to understand, and it's a very clinically significant topics. All of them you will encounter when you go in your clinical. So, any patient can go into a shock because of pain. Patient can have a heart attack and can get a thrombosis. So, we'll discuss each of them separately. So, it's a cause and major cause of morbidity and death. Today we are going to talk about hemodynamic disorders. So, our objectives are to understand what is a normal blood flow and fluid balance in the body, to know the causes and effects of edema, congestion, and hemorrhage, to know how thrombosis and embolism develop and their outcomes, and to study types, causes, and stages of shock. So, what are the 5 things which you should know is edema, congestion, thrombosis, embolism, and shock. Normally, hemostasis prevents bleeding, imbalance causes hemorrhage or thrombosis, and thromboembolism is a major cause of morbidity and death. Edema. Edema is defined as an abnormal accumulation of fluid in interstitial tissue spaces. The normal causes are increased hydrostatic pressure, decreased oncotic pressure, lymphatic obstruction, sodium retention, and inflammation. So, what are the commonest causes of hydrostatic pressure? Increased hydrostatic pressure is congestive cardiac failure, congestive pericarditis or DVT, or deep vein thrombosis. Reduced oncotic pressure can be because of nephrotic syndrome, cirrhosis, malnutrition. There can be lymphatic obstruction due to tumor, filariasis, or surgery, or there can be sodium water retention like in renal failure or heart failure, and there can be inflammation like acute and chronic inflammation. So, this is the capillary blood flow through a vessel wall, and at the arterial end you have the hydrostatic pressure, and the venous end you have a oncotic pressure. So, hydrostatic pressure, when there is increased hydrostatic pressure, what will happen is fluid goes out of the vessel wall, goes to the lymphatics, gets absorbed, and then comes back into the vessel wall. So, now what is the gross features? You can have swollen tissues, you can have pitting on pressure, lungs are heavy, brain is flat. Microscopy, you can have clear spaces between the cells with pale swollen cells. So, we can just discuss about the pathophysiology. If you have a heart failure, what will happen is there will be increased capillary hydrostatic pressure which causes edema directly, or there is decreased blood flow to the kidney, activating the renin-angiotensin system, causing increased retention of sodium and water with increased blood volume. Or you can have liver which is failing, you can have decreased proteins causing decreased plasma, oncotic pressure, and causing edema. So, there are different categories. We will just talk about it briefly. There can be impaired venous return as occurs in congestive heart failure and causing increased hydrostatic pressure. There can be decreased oncotic pressure as we said in malnutrition or liver failure. Increased lymphatic obstruction like in inflammatory or neoplastic or post-surgical or post-radiation, and sodium retention as in kidney renal failure. So, what will happen is, then what is hyperemia? Hyperemia is increased blood volume in tissues, but the mechanism differ. Hyperemia, if there is arterial dilatation, what will happen is that as in occurs in inflammation or skeletal muscle during exercise, the tissue appears red due to oxygenated blood. Congestion is due to impaired venous outflow of the blood. So, what will happen is the tissues get engorged. It can be acute, can be engorged capillaries, or chronic, can be cause persistent hypoxia and fibrosis. So, what are the normal organs and morphology which you can see? In lung, you can see what is called brown induration or heart failure cells. In liver, you can see nutmeg pattern, centrilobular necrosis, and spleen, you can have fibrosis or Gamma-Gandhi bodies. So this is a pictorial image of how a liver with chronic congestion and hemorrhagic necrosis looks. So you have a liver and you have a yellow tan areas and you have reddish brown points, reddish brown petechiae type points, which are areas of necrosis. So, and this is a microscopic image where you have the liver hepatocyte clots on the periphery and there is a central area of necrosis where you cannot make out the liver hepatocyte clots. So, we will come to now what is a normal hemostasis. Hemostasis is a process which prevents hemorrhage after vascular injury. There can be steps are vasoconstriction, platelet plug, coagulation cascade and clot stabilization. So, normally after hemostasis what will happen is there is a neurohumoral factors which induce transit vasoconstriction. So, this is normal hemostasis. So, after injury platelets come, platelets change their shape and there is a degranulation which is released. Now, these degranulations will cause more platelets to come and accumulate and these platelets will now start and tissue factors released from the injured area and the clotting cascade starts. The end process is the formation of a clot at the injured site. And to prevent the clot from spreading forward, you have release of what is called fibrinolytic agents like TPA and thrombomodulin. So the clot does not spread throughout the blood vessel. So this is, as we said, platelet adhesion and activation. Then you have platelet adhesion activation. This is a pictorial diagram of platelet adhesion activation. Platelet binds to the von Willebrand factor through a receptor called group 1B. It can also bind to another platelets through group 2B and 3A complex. And deficiency of this group 2B, 3A is called Glanzmann thromboasthenia and deficiency of 1B is called Bernard-Soulier syndrome. If you have von Willebrand factor deficiency, it's called von Willebrand disease. Each step consists of an enzyme, substrate and cofactor. Enzyme consists of an activated coagulation factor. Substrate is an inactive proenzyme and a cofactor which is a reaction accelerator. So clotting, how does it occur? Normally if it's intrinsic and extrinsic pathway, intrinsic can occur because of negatively charged surfaces. So there is long steps like 12 to 12A, 11 to 11A, 9 to 9A. Then this will convert 10 to 10A and forming prothrombin to thrombin and fibrinogen to fibrin. So this is an extrinsic pathway occurs through the release of tissue factor which converts 7 to 7A. So all these things occurs in synchrony. If suppose there is a vascular injury, what will happen is there is a exposure of tissue factor and which again the same steps are followed. Forming the end product is the production of a fibrin clot. So how does thrombin occur? Thrombin is the end forms prothrombin to thrombin is formed and the thrombin causes fibrinogen to form fibrin. So what are the hemorrhagic disorders? There can be bleeding occurring from the vessel walls, platelets or coagulation factor. Primary hemostasis defects can be petechiae purpura, epistaxis or menorrhagia. Secondary can be a muscle or joint bleed or there can be small vessel disorders like palpal purpura, ecchymosis or hematoma. This is a pictorial diagram of a hematoma or small petechial purpura. Thrombosis, definition, formation of a clot in intact vessels. Virchow triad, there can be endothelial injury, abnormal flow or hypercoagulability. So Virchow triads, this is a pictorial diagram of a Virchow's triad. So normally endothelial injury occurs commonly due to hypercholesterolemia or inflammation. Abnormal blood flow can be because of stasis. Hypercoagulability can be because of any disseminated cancer or factor V laden factors. Morphology, thrombus. Arterial thrombus looks pale because more of platelets. Venous is more reddish color because of RBCs and there is a solid mass formation in vessels. What are lines of Zorn? Zorns are alternating layers of reddish and pale areas which consists of fibrin and RBCs. Thrombus can occur in heart when it's called mural thrombus. If it is in the peripheral veins, it's called venous thrombus and there is presence of lines of Zorn. So this is a pictorial diagram of a mural thrombi, how it looks in the heart and in the aorta. Clots which are formed can be formed post after death, which are called post-mortem clots, and they can appear either dark red in the lower part with a yellow chicken fat in the upper part, and these are not attached to the vessel wall. Fate of thrombus can either dissolve, propagate, or it can go to a distant site, or it can organize and form small vascular channels. Clinical features: thrombus can occur in deep vein thrombosis, commonly in femoral vein, iliac or popliteal, and normally increased risk with stasis, immobilization, pregnancy and tumors. And this can travel, as I said, you can go to pulmonary embolism, you can go to the lung, or if it's an arterial or cardiac thrombus, it can cause atherosclerosis or myocardial infarction. What is an embolus? Embolus is a detached solid, liquid or gaseous mass carried by blood to distant site, causing occlusion, ischemia or infarction. Most common type is thromboembolism. Other types of emboli are fat, air, atheromatous embolism, tumor or bone marrow emboli, or amniotic fluid emboli. Emboli, the main effect is embolus travels until they lodge in small vessels and block blood vessel, causing tissue damage. Embolus can, if it's an arterial emboli, it can go to brain, kidney, spleen. Venous can go to the lungs. So we come to the last topic, which is shock. Shock is defined as a state of circulatory failure that impairs tissue perfusion and leads to cellular hypoxia. Shock can cause circulatory failure, decreased tissue perfusion and cellular hypoxia. Initially reversible, prolonged, it can cause death. So 4 types. Cardiogenic, if it is related due to pump failure of heart, it can be hypovolemic if there is decreased blood volume. Septic can be because of bacteria, can be gram-positive, gram-negative bacteria or fungus. Rare types can be neurogenic or anaphylactic shock. Stages can be non-progressive when it's compensated, that is patient recovers. Progressive, more tissue hypoxia, lactic acidosis, and irreversible stage, there is multi-organ failure and death. So this is the pictorial diagram of a septic shock, the pathophysiology of a septic shock, how this happens. Any bacterial, gram-positive or gram-negative microbial products releases pathogen-associated molecular patterns, and this will either activate the endothelium directly or activate the clotting factor, activate the complements, or activate the cytokines through neutrophils and monocyte activation. The end process is there is a microvascular thrombosis, tissue ischemia, there is increased vascular permeability, there is multi-organ failure, systemic effects causing fever, metabolic abnormalities and immunosuppression. So what is our morphology? Kidneys can show fibrin thrombi, adrenals show lipid depletions, lungs can show shock lung, and prognosis is quite poor in septic or cardiogenic shock. So what are the clinical key concepts and clinical significance? Edema is due to imbalance of hydrostatic and oncotic forces. Congestion occurs due to venous stasis causing chronic damage to end organs. Thrombosis, the most important thing concept you should know is virtuous triad. Embolism can cause infarction, and chronic congestion can morphology is it can affect the liver, it can affect the lungs. So this is the morphology of chronic congestion, or it can affect the spleen. These are my references: Robbins and Cotran's Pathological Basis of Disease, 11th edition, and Ackerman's Surgical Pathology. Thank you.